everybody. Welcome to the TraderMerlin Show. It is your Tuesday edition. Taco Tuesday out there. Hope you had a fantastic trading session. I know that many of you were kind of holding on for this short opportunity. Well, you were greeted by a pretty nice short opportunity near the end of today's trading session. Some very nice sell-offs out there. I did add more to my short position on my options, so now needless to say, I've got a very large position going on, and I made one mistake. Some of you were asking which expiration did I choose for my puts that I was buying on the SPY. I said August. I'm actually buying the September 18th put options out there, and right now I am at 320 put options. So obviously today's move was very nice for that position, and added to that position, and hopefully we'll get bigger and bigger. My goal is to get it to right around 500 put options by the time I stop building this position. Because I think in the next couple of months, and maybe not right now, maybe in the next couple of months, you'll start to see things slowly start to hit home and settle in with regards to economic data, and that market will roll over. And I plan on being the benefactor of that sell-off, especially now that Goldman Sachs out there said, hey, you know what? We see the market's dropping 18% in the next, next 3 months? Well, I think it'll be worse than that, but oh well. All right, what we're going to do today is go through a bunch of listener questions. I do have some announcements with regards to guests. Next week we'll have Tim Blotzer on the program. I'm also trying to get my buddy who is an expert in the cannabis industry on the program. I'm working on Bob Dunn, since I say that many of you have been asking for Bob Dunn. So why not bring Bob Dunn on the program? We'll do that as soon as I can. He's been very busy teaching his signature series, so we'll talk hopefully as soon as I can, getting him on the program. All right. Economic-wise and earnings-wise, it wasn't the biggest day. There wasn't anything that was just so groundbreaking. None of the numbers really were that out of line to me. But I do want to start with your earnings calendar, just because I think it sets the tone for what I feel is this dismal quarter coming up. We know that car makers obviously have not been doing very well. Well, we had one reporting today. Here's what Honda Motor Company did today, and they were estimating to have earnings of 28 cents per share. They came out at negative 16. And look, that's not even the high-end vehicle. That's your economic vehicle. They're doing very poorly. You all see Toyota Motor and BMW are on the list, but I didn't see them post their numbers. But it's just one of those signs that this is only with Q1. Wait till we get to Q2. These numbers could be really, really bad for Toyota, Honda, BMW, any big motor company like that, because who's really driving anywhere? All right, that will be it for your opening, at least economic calendar out there. I'm going to go to your trading platform and show us a bunch of different things. I got a ton of stuff that people have been asking about, so hopefully I will get a chance to look at as many charts today as possible. So I'm going to start with our worst and work our way up to our first place finisher here. I'll do it rather quickly so we can get more time for listener questions, as I can see that you have, I see a bunch of questions coming in early, and that's actually probably the best place to do that, so I can get those questions answered. All right, here's your Russell 2000, which almost had a 5% down day today, 4.55%. You know, you look at a number like 4.55%, you're thinking, oh my God, that is horrible. But really, look at the bounce we've had. It's not that big of a deal. Now, of course, if we can officially break this uptrend, I think you'd all agree by analyzing this price chart, we can loosely draw these trend lines. Oops, sorry, it's on snap mode. Let me get that off here. And by the way, I may have to stop using TradeStation. They sent me a notice yesterday saying that I'm considered to be a professional, so I may have to pay professional fees to use TradeStation. If that happens, I will just close out all my TradeStation accounts and call it a day. And use a different platform, just to show you guys price charts. Come on. So, you know, we can make the argument that we're at that breaking point right now on this trend line, which obviously has been a huge run for the Russell 2000. And most of the indexes are starting to look like this. I would argue that trend is still intact. If we get below certainly the 1200 mark, but maybe even a little higher than that, maybe the 1220, then I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic that this is going to start to retrace and head back down towards these lows that we saw back in mid-March. So that was your Russell down 4.55, S&P with a similar picture down 2.86%, and actually as soon as it opened up in the new trading session, it's fallen even more. Just for those that may have not had a chance to see the trend, that is a thing of beauty. We broke that 2,900 and have just been falling ever since, and it's just drifting lower and lower and lower. You know, this could be one of those situations where we end up seeing a lock limit down if it just keeps on dropping and dropping and dropping, but I don't think we'll go that far in the after hour. We'll probably stabilize, have a little bit of a rally, but my guess is some of the fear will continue on through tomorrow, and you'll see some more sell-off tomorrow, but that is just a guess. NASDAQ is almost as bad as the S&P, 2.54% to the south side, although its up move was much, much better. I mean, look at that, the huge up move we've had in the NASDAQ 100. So today's little pullback, really just an engulfing candle that, would be viewed as normal, honestly, in this price chart. Here's your 10-year. We saw the yield spike back up drop today. That, of course, means you're seeing a rise in the price of that 10-year, but nothing noteworthy. Gold back above that 75, or still above it, I guess you could say. 1705 is the number it's at today, up 0.44%. Bitcoin coming back a little bit off of yesterday's really ugly gap down with the kind of rollover on that one for Bitcoin. You're up 1.08% today at 8,890, and I do think you'll see that 10,000 being challenged here very, very shortly. And finally, you have crude oil, which this pattern that's forming right now on the daily is actually a really, really strong, powerful pattern, guys. I know it doesn't look like much, but you have this really aggressive run of over 100%, and normally when you have a move like that, you're going to get a retracement, a pullback, something significant. It has not at all. I mean, just barely pulled back, and it hasn't made new lows every day for the past... Holy cow. Every day since the 28th of April, it has made a higher low. Yes, here is an equal low for 2 days, but it's made a higher low every day since then. That obviously is a very, very positive and strong sign out there for crude oil. So it looks to me like one of those things where it's going to hit its head above on this line, and this is where we talked about it turning, was right in this area of consolidation from April, right? You had this little area right here before it had the big sell-off. That was where we initially thought, hey, it was going to have difficulty on. We talked about it on Power Trading Radio. It sold off for a day and then has just been holding it, which is a really strong sign. It means that people who are long oil are not selling, and those who are feeling that that's a supply level right there are not selling or shorting. Ultimately, what will happen is that should end up ripping through to the upside. So that's your most positive one out there today, 4.97% to 25.34 for crude oil, making it your best performer on the day. Okay. I will go through and get a bunch of these listener questions answered for sure. So let me just go through the ones I had prepped because they sent them through on the YouTube page. And I told everybody I'm giving priority to the YouTube page. I may as well hold up my end of the bargain. So let me bring up I had a screen all prepped and ready for you guys. Obviously, the topic du jour is one that you guys are used to, which is Q&A with me, Trader Merlin. We will start with one that came from Gary, and I actually paraphrased this one a lot. There were a lot of kind of real heartfelt emotions in this one from Gary, and I understand. He really has this fear and concern about placing orders, very uncomfortable with it. It's kind of a foreign process, and I totally get that. I understand clearly. So I am going to... the audio sounds different today? Yeah? Kevin says the audio sounds different today. It's looking exactly the same to me, so hopefully everything else sounds okay. It may be a bandwidth issue. You know what? Ever since I switched to low latency, I think that may cause issues on your end. The recorder sounds fine, but hopefully that sounds good to everybody out there. So Gary says, here's a thought. Maybe you can spend a couple of minutes on how to actually place an order. Now, I'm not going to go through and be placing orders live. I mean, I guess I could at some point if we need to. I could be placing orders live. But, okay, cool. Thank you guys for the feedback. Big Ed says, I get a rush when placing orders. Yeah, here's the reason why Gary and many of you probably have that feeling of nervousness. Is because there's all these factors that you need to process, right? You're going through these steps, this process of all these actions need to be taken, and they need to be done correctly, because any mistake there, you could be buying at the wrong price, you could have slippage, you could have other kinds of issues, you may not even place the order correctly and it never gets filled. So I thought it'd be real quick and easy just to kind of give you a checklist. And one thing you have to remember if you are placing an order for the first time or new to trading is before you don't just hit the buy button or the sell button, right? There's a lot more to it than that. You're obviously planning out that trade beforehand, and we talk about that. I know a lot of you are using OTA's Pro Picks or using the grid levels. Those have entry and stop loss targets and numbers. Some of those actually have price targets. So we write out our variables. It makes it very easy for us to remember what we should be doing. The final part here, which I think is very helpful, is making sure you guys use hand signals for yourself, especially those who aren't used to shorting and understand how shorting works. So let me walk through a little bit of a checklist I put together to help Gary and others out. You should certainly write these down if you are nervous at all about placing orders. So I'm going through an order entry process, and this is something that I wrote down on my monitor years ago just because I was screwing up all the time, and I wanted to make sure that I fixed those problems. Step number 1 is making sure you have the correct symbol. This one it cracks me up. How many I'll get real quick, just to get interaction out here. I want you guys to type into the chat right now, and even if you don't know it, just go ahead and type in what you think it is. So we get everyone. I see we got 64 people here. I should get 64 answers. What is, type into chat, the ticker symbol for Intel? So if you're going to buy Intel, what would you type in? What would you have to put in? This one always cracks me up because invariably people get it wrong. And it's one of those things that if you type in the wrong symbol into your trading platform, the computer doesn't know that it's the wrong symbol. It's saying, oh, that's what you wanted? That's what you're going to get. And usually it comes in in 3 different variations. I can see Brendan and Steven are active ones. AVP's like, I don't know. Okay, perfect. L Day Traders puts INT. Been there, done that. Okay, great. So right now, some of you, if you were to trade Intel, you would be buying something else, right? Of course, L Day Trader says, I don't trade stocks. Cool. I appreciate you still putting the ticker symbol. And this is why. A lot of people put in INTEL, thinking it's Intel, right? That's the symbol. It's not. It's INTC. Some of you guys put in INT. The point here is you've got to know the ticker symbol. And I have done it. I put in the wrong symbol. I can see Tarja says, I've been there, done that. I have as well. And it's so freaking frustrating when you buy something and you're like, wait a minute. That's not what I wanted. And you look at the chart, it's a different chart. Ticker symbol, whether you're trading futures, options is probably more complicated. Forex, futures is challenging because the month always changes. Stocks is easy because they don't change. But always make sure to check that. So if you're trading off a specific price chart, and I'll do an example here. Let's go back to our chart, and I will bring up TradeStation, which may be another platform soon. So let me go and just look up Intel. So here's INT that some of you guys said. This would be a it's called World Fuel Services, would be INT. That's not Intel. And then you can go INTEL. That's nothing. INTC is the symbol we want. And here is Intel. So one of the things you can do, and this actually will help a lot, is you can put in a watermark, as you can see here on this screen where it says INTC in big letters. That will help out for those of you who just want to ease that process. I usually don't like having watermarks. I don't like having that on the screen, but I do it just for the show. My normal trading, I don't have any watermarks because I'm pretty confident in my abilities. But if you're starting out, this is a real good crutch. Also, you can check right here that it says INTC. Now, there's all kinds of other weird things that happen. Sometimes you'll click a symbol. I have everything linked, but sometimes you'll be looking at INTC, but your box up here maybe, right? You guys can see the mistake I'm making. It's hard to see, I can tell, I know that, but the chart that I'm looking at here is Intel, but the ticker symbol in the order entry box, which I cannot make bigger or I would so you guys could see it, it's Microsoft. Again, this is the point. You have to make sure that when you send this order that is Intel. So I'll go in here and type in INTC. All right. So now I know my symbol is correct. And if it takes you a couple minutes to do this, that's fine. Take a couple minutes to do it. It gets faster, I promise you. So correct symbol is number 1. Number 2 is making sure you have the correct number of shares or lots. You guys have heard of fat fingering before. There's been instances where traders have put in the wrong amount of shares or lots and crashed the market. Fortunately for us as retailers, it's going to be limited by your buying power, so you won't be able to go crazy. But certainly make sure, because there are defaults. Let's go to the platform again. And the default for this one is 500 shares. For some of you, you don't want to be trading 500 shares, right? You don't want to be trading maybe even 100 shares. Now, 500 shares of Intel is certainly way different than 500 shares of Amazon. So you always make sure you check, number 2, your share size, okay? And write it down on a piece of paper. That will help you out immensely in this process, these 5 pieces of information that go into every trade. All right, next piece is going to be your order type. Why is this important? Because there are so many different things that can happen when you send an order to the market. Here is, let's go back to Intel. There's limit and market. And I'm not going to make this a whole education lesson because I know a lot of you guys really are probably going to be bored to death on this question that I'm answering. But it is fundamental and it is critical for everybody. There's 2 main types, limit versus market. Just understand this. A market order says, give it to me right now. I don't really care what price, which means you could get slippage, meaning you might not get the price that you want. You might pay more than the best price right now because of things moving quickly. A limit says, I want it at this price, and I'm not willing to pay any higher than that or sell it for any lower than that. depending on which order type, really may dictate whether you get that trade or not. I like market orders depending on when I'm buying or selling, right? There's a situation where I like to use market orders better because market orders mean I'm going to get it. So if I'm real sure and something's moving, I'll use a market. A limit order, I may not get filled. So after all that research and time and effort I've done to plan out these trades, it's a little frustrating to put limit orders and not get filled. However, if you are a set and forget type of trader, which I would encourage many of you to start off that way, just because it's slower, it's easier for you to put these orders in the system, then you'll be using limits a little bit more frequently. So on the screen, it's real simple. It just says order type. There's a drop-down menu. You can see I've got market, stop limit, stop market. I'm not going to cover those other ones, but we'll just keep it on limit right now. So let's say for whatever reason, I want to buy Intel when it gets down here to 56 bucks. All right, so we'll just do a 56.30 is the buy point. Just making it up just for example purposes. Now, if we go back to our list, we've got 3 things covered so far. You've got correct symbol, which in this case is INTC. You got the correct lots or share size. We haven't dictated what that will be, but I'll make it 100 shares just so we can change the default on the program. And you actually may want to do that. For those of you who are using a specific platform, you can go into the settings panel on almost every trading platform out there and change your default. I would encourage you to do that. Some platforms, well, back in the day, they defaulted to 1,000. Talk about a rude awakening sometimes. If you are comfortable trading bigger, that's fine, but it's always easier to go down to what your normal is. So if you're going to trade 100 shares at a time, go change your settings and your default to 100. That way you don't get caught accidentally buying way more than you should have. All right, we have order type. Again, limit, market. There's actually 6 things, but I'm going to only cover 5 right here. Order price. Again, this should be no big deal. You have put all the numbers in the system. You've got your entry, your stop loss, your price target. Well, you need to know what price exactly you're putting in. So if we go to our screen again and I bring up the platform, we've done the first 4. I've got the correct symbols Intel. I'm going to change my share size here to 100 shares. I've got my order type as limit, and I already told you I wanted to buy if it got to 56.30. Again, just so everybody knows, I'm not saying buy Intel at 56.30. Please, this is just, I'm doing an example. I would not want to buy Intel at 56.30. Just doing this as an example. You'd be surprised how many people are like, hey, I bought it at 56.30 and it went down. Oh, it was an example. And then our final piece of information here is going to be the most important one, the one that almost everybody gets right one direction. Everybody gets it right when they go long, meaning if you go long, you're going to hit that buy button. Going short is a process that a lot of people get backwards and confuse. If you're short, this is where I told you guys to use thumbs and use hand gestures to help you out. You really want to make sure that you do this at home. If you're long, thumb up. Where's your stop loss going to be? It's down below it. If you're short and you think price is going down, where's your stop loss going to be? It's going to be up above that. A lot of people, I'd say when I was teaching, I'd say 75 to 80% of people got that wrong. When they were short, they were going to sell it. Well, no, you don't sell it. You already sold it if it's short. If you're short, you have to buy it back. Remember, it's order of operations. Going long, which means you think it's going up, you buy low and you hopefully sell it higher. Buy and a sell. If you're short, you reverse those order operations and you sell it first and you buy it back later. So make sure you get those pieces in there. The last one, which I'm going to show you on the screen here, is something that doesn't get a lot of discussion, and it's really hard to see because the font is so small on the screen. But you have the duration. Duration means how long do you want that order to stay in the computer system or stay on the network. Most of you are probably just going to use for the day, meaning as soon as that closing bell rings in the equity market, that order gets kicked out and is no longer valid. If you want it to be alive during the after-hours session, you hit day plus, and that will go until the open of the next market session, next day. There's good till cancel, which means leave it in there until I tell you to cancel it. Generally, if it has a plus sign, that means in the after-hours trading session. And there's a whole bunch of other types here, but that's I don't want to waste our time on that one. So for the gentleman who sent in that question earlier, make sure I get the gentleman's name correct. It was Gary. Follow these steps, and don't feel rushed. Take your time. Practice this in Simulator for a while, and you'll do it more repetitively, and all of a sudden it gets quicker, and then it becomes second nature, especially if you're trading the same stocks. If you trade a lot of different things and you're flipping all the time, that can be a little challenging because you might go from a $20 stock to, let's say, a $100 stock to a $500 stock. Your share size has to change every time. Your ticker symbol has to change every time. It becomes much easier if you kind of stick with one symbol and just trade that one till you get comfortable. And again, commissions are free right now, so trade very small share size till you get it. And that process, which is real simple, guys, check your symbol, check your number of shares or lots or contracts, your order type, is it limit, is it market, order price, make sure it's exactly right, that you got the decimal point in the right place, and then hit the buy or sell button. And remember, if you're short, you have to buy back to cover later on. So this is a very, very simple checklist for you. I wanted to put it in there because I could feel the pain and emotion in Gary's email, and it hurts me to see that, because you shouldn't be afraid of it. It's simple, just process. And look at it from the perspective of, was it scary when you started to drive a stick shift for the first time? For you millennials out there, a stick shift is what us older people call an anti-theft device for millennials, because you guys don't know how to drive a stick shift. I know, I'm being a smartass today. It's tough. I just looked in the mirror how old and how long my hair was getting. I was like, okay, I can make old man jokes now. But that first time you drove a stick shift, it was like, oh, you're freaking out, you're nervous, you're stalling, you're grinding the clutch, you're smoking the clutch. It's like, okay, at a certain point, though, after you've done it for a little while, I can drive a stick shift all day long and not have any issues. It's a simple thing that we just have to get used to that process. So if any part of trading bothers you, or you're nervous, or you're fearful, you're nervous about it, then write it down. Everything's a process. There's a checklist to almost every single thing that you can do in trading. Write it down, put it on your monitor, and go from there. Okay. This millennial drives a 2000 manual. All right. Well, you're lucky, Brendan. You're gifted, we'll say. Let's see. What are the quick questions? What are your thoughts on indexes? Are we at the beginning of the second leg down? I'm the wrong person to ask that, Mark, because I'm decisively bearish. I don't know if this is the next leg down. I know that we are coming up to another leg down. I think if you put this market on top of what we saw in 2008 or the Great Depression, they look almost identical. And what happens is you get this nice euphoria, relief rally, they're out of the woods, and then all of a sudden it comes crashing back down. The only thing that separates this from the previous times is the sheer amount of money that the government and the Fed have poured in. That's the only wild card for me at this point. Other than that, I think we're definitely on the next leg down, but that's just my opinion. L Day Trader says, quick question, can Bitcoin be traded with OTA supply and demand since it's internet money and not regulated like institutional trading? Well, it's not that it's regulated, it's just, are institutions there? And when we say institutions, there are institutions there, but we don't call them institutions in Bitcoin. What do we call them? Whales. Same thing. In a price chart for Intel or Dell or Microsoft or the S&P futures, I'm looking for the whale. I'm looking for the big guy, the guy who's got so much money he can't move very quickly. They're the ones that are going to turn price. And it's not that we need to call them institutions or whales. It's just, who's the dude with more money? Right? It ain't me. I'm not the guy out there with $50 million going to stop a stock in its tracks. I'm a guy who I consider more of a mosquito trader, where I'm going to go in and I'm going to take little pieces of that pie along the way, enough to make my life happy and at the level that I want it to be at. But those guys that are trading at that level with that big a size, that's just scary. I don't want any part of it. But they're the ones we want to pay attention to. Long-winded answer, yes, they are in Bitcoin. They are in every cryptocurrency out there. You can't hide big money buying and selling in the charts. Exactly. You can see it. You can see it happening. All right, let me keep going. And don't worry, I will get to, I think there were a bunch of questions at the very beginning I'm going to get to, but I want to get to these few that I have here real quick. I know that was a longer winded. We went a long time on that one question there, so hopefully we can keep moving. All right. Let me see. For some reason, this screen just totally changed on me. All right, we will do it this way. Michael on YouTube posted this one underneath one of my videos. He said, what's your take on software from Trade Ideas? I'm not a huge fan of something that makes decisions for you. And that's just me. I know many of you right here, right now, are probably going to disagree with me on that one, and that's totally fine. What I like, what I prefer, and I'm not speaking for everybody out there, this is just me, Michael, so make sure you understand that. I love the process of figuring out this puzzle. I literally, on my table over there in the kitchen, I have a giant puzzle. I think it's only, well, not giant, it's 550 pieces. I like the process of it. If you're looking to find a software like Trade Ideas, you're basically saying, okay, I bought this puzzle, but I want someone to put together most of it for me, and I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of work. I'm okay with something if it helps me in certain areas of my life. I certainly don't like paying monthly fees for software. Trade Ideas and many others like them have monthly fees or annual fees that are associated with it. I feel it goes back to the old adage of you give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life. Those platforms, if you are using things like that, they may make you money in certain markets. What I've found is that they work well in a type of market, generally a trending market. Now, I can't speak to the AI that they're using at that specific company, but there's a lot of companies out there that are doing relatively similar things. I'm not a fan because I like the game. I like to go out there and get my hands dirty. I like to think. I like to process the information and put together those puzzle pieces of where is price going and how can I get the most bang for my buck out of it. So if it's something you want to explore, great, go for it. But don't forget that if you use that, you are now no longer going to be using the analytics side of your brain, which says, I am making this trade. You're saying, tell me what to buy or tell me what to sell. That, to me, no longer is fun anymore, but that's totally up to you. Okay, next question out there. I know, it's so weird, this thing, it totally changed out there. There we go. Next question. And this is a really tough one for me to answer. I don't really know. This is from Lee. I think it has a name on there. Yep. Well, no, I didn't put the name down. This one came in earlier today. Sorry, it was about the cannabis stocks. I forgot the gentleman's name. I apologize. You took your time to send me a question. I didn't even fill it out. He said, I bought calls on MJ, CGC, Tilray, Cronus, and ACB expiring January 2021. Losing on all close to 80%. Any recommendations? That's a tough one, man. I have to ask from the very beginning, just put on my mentor hat, my educator hat, my teacher hat, and say, well, what was your plan? Was it just, hey, these stocks are cheap and I think they're going to go up? Remember, we've been saying in the program, and I've got bear witnesses here, I got a whole bunch of witnesses here that basically will vouch for me when I said, look, we've been bearish on the cannabis stocks for some time. Personally, I'm very bullish on them, but just not at this exact moment. Now, we did switch a little while ago when all of a sudden we started making new highs. I still feel like we're not quite out of the woods yet with this big downtrend we've had. So take a peek at some of the price charts here. I'll bring up those ticker symbols you mentioned. MJ, obviously the ETF representing the sector, and it's looking pretty good. We actually had this line at 1265. It gapped up one day above it and hasn't breached it yet, or breached it since. To me, right now, I'd be kind of cautiously optimistic. If it starts making new lows, yeah, I'm not positive anymore, but I think you're looking at a good price chart here for MJ going forward. If you're down to 80%, that means that you bought somewhere back in here, back in November, December, when this thing was much, much, much higher. That's why you're down so much. So it begs the question, why did you buy it? There really wasn't anything except this one blip that happened in January of this year, where we were up for about a week above a new high and then just gave it all back. That's still part of a big downtrend. You look at CGC, right? CGC is not looking very good. It's since March it's starting to get stronger, but the question I have is why and when did you buy those options? You bought some call options way early, I think. So what do you do with that? At this point, you don't really have much choice. I would say you just hold them, because you're going to dump them now. What's the point? You've only got 20% of the value left. At this point, you've ridden them down too far. I would say just hold on to it. Now, the aggressive me, and this is very aggressive me, would tell you this. If you are looking at the price charts of, let's say, MJ, because I think MJ is a better candidate for what I'm looking for pattern-wise, and all of a sudden MJ starts to break through those highs, right? It breaks through that $13 mark and starts trending up. I might buy more of those call options that you bought before and do a little bit of dollar cost averaging, but it has to prove to me that it's trending up. At this point, you're kind of in a bad situation. There's not really much you can do other than just close it out now, which would be, obviously terrible for you because you sustain a loss. I would probably just ride it out. I have a situation like that myself on crude oil. I bought USO futures, USO call options a while back. Those are going to expire worthless. They're going to cost me almost $5,000. But when I went into that trade, I knew it's an all or nothing type of thing. At this point, I'll end up with nothing on that trade. So I think you're in a better position than I am with my oil trade. Your cannabis stocks, I think, have some upside potential. But what do? You just kind of have to wait and ride it out right now. All right. Let me go to Lee's question, since I showed that one to you a second ago. All right, last one. or at least for right now. I got another couple good ones. I want to make sure I get to yours. This is from Lee. He says, why is the equity market so strong? From a long-term investment perspective, it seems late and too high for buying now. I would agree with you. I scratched my head at that. That's why I did a special show on Thursday. If you go back to last Thursday, it says markets all-time highs. And in there, I do outline a couple of arguments why this market could go higher and very well might go higher. And that's just to the sheer amount of capital that we are seeing from the Fed and our governments put in. When you put that kind of money into our market, it's really hard for it to sell off. Remember, GDP, 21, 22 trillion, and they put in 5 trillion in a 2-month period just to help our markets out. Well, when you put in 20% of our annual GDP, it makes up for a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of room to push it to the upside. I still think that now is too high to buy. I'm not a buyer right now. I still feel that the worst is yet to come. It's interesting hearing Goldman Sachs say 18% drop in the next 2 or 3 months. I think it could go much, much, much lower than that. I mean, I'm looking the call options, or sorry, the put options that I bought. I was at the 185s. I mean, those things are going they were down to like $1.25 today for those call options. Even if we got down, let's just say to 26, those things will be worth probably $3-4. So, for me, I'm more protecting for the downside and looking for the downside. I just think that it's going to end up rolling over, but that's it. All right. That was the question I got from Lee. Let me go to way earlier. There's some questions at the very beginning of this from a regular out there. Dave says, can you talk about why it's so important to measure the markets against each other and why we should trade the leader? I never understood why. I think that there's a little bit of a mistake in there. You should always be looking at how the markets relate to each other because it'll show you which one's relatively strong or relatively weak. So if we're in a very strong bullish market, and let's just say, I'll do it real simple and say I've got 4 indexes. Unfortunately, I don't have my overlay charts here. I need to move those over from another computer. Let's say we've got the indexes. The S&P, NASDAQ, Russell, and the Dow. You would think that they were going to be lockstep together. That's not true. There's always little fluctuations in there. Sometimes it's dramatic. Like today, you saw the Russell 2000 twice as weak as the other ones. So if I'm looking at a daily chart, maybe going back to the beginning of the year, and I line all of those up, I got all 4 of them, and unfortunately I don't have the chart here, so I'm making it up off the top of my head. But let's say the NASDAQ is clearly the leader. If I see a situation where it looks like we're going to break out to the upside and the markets are going to move higher, which one of those am I going to buy? I'm going to want to buy the lead dog, meaning I'm going to go into the NASDAQ, I'm going to go into technology. However, if I see all of a sudden things starting to roll over a little bit and looking weaker, which one of those am I going to look to short? The one that's already weakest, which would be, in this case, the Russell 2000. So it's not that we want to trade the lead dog for the direction that we're going, I think would be a better way to look at it. If I'm looking to go long, I want to be buying the strongest one. If I want to go short, I'm looking to short the weakest one. So it's not that you have to buy the strongest or the leader. It's the leader in the direction that you want to go. If you're going short the weakest thing out there because it's already short, it's already weak for a reason. These markets start to roll over, it'll probably get weaker and weaker. All right, that was one question. Dave also says, do you know what a trading floor for an institution looks like? What makes that employee put a trade on? So years ago, I had the opportunity of going and sitting on a trading floor because I was such an active trader. I was doing so much volume. They invited me onto the trading floor for this firm in Texas. And I've learned long time ago that if somebody has a secret that you want to know, you just pretend like you're an idiot. Pretend you're the dumbest person in the room and they'll let their guard down because if they're trying to guard that secret, they'll be really, guarded about it because, this person's trying to get that secret. Obviously, as a market maker, you know that people are trying to figure out your game and figure out what you're doing. I went in there to this trading floor with one of my, another guy I was working with at the time, and I asked just the dumbest questions. I mean, it was so stupid. I felt stupid asking them. I'm like, God, I'm being an idiot. But I was baiting this guy. I wanted him to drop his guard and give me information on exactly what you're asking me, which is, how is he processing orders? What is this guy doing? So he ultimately dropped his guard, and I could do a whole show just on that because it was such an entertaining and interesting day that I got to spend on it. They put me with the underling, the guy who basically was probably just starting out. He was trading 30 different stocks. They were all the high flyer internet stocks of the day. This is back in 2000, 2001 when I went to this trading floor. But basically, they're just trading order flow that comes in. So a lot of them, the order comes to the desk and they just have to match up this order flow. A lot of times there was a trade manager, like a desk guy, would walk around and basically give some of them different objectives, like, hey, I need you to do this, I need to do this. We got to make up this client's account. I need to sell 50,000 shares of this. But for the most part, they're just facilitating order flow. Now, I don't want to say they were really tiny. I mean, they weren't a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan trading desk or anything like that. But they're generally going to be facilitating order flow for their institutions and their clients. That's generally how it works. So that's how they're being told what to buy or sell. All right, let me see. Let's see if I got any other ones here that I can answer real quick. I'm looking for question marks. Joseph says, time to be a car buyer. You're asking the wrong guy. I am the type of guy who I'll buy a car and I'll just ride it into the grave. I mean, I'll have I'm a truck guy, so I'll have that one for a long, long, long time. Let's see. Joseph, you have to pay professional because you're power of attorney. The thing that sucks is professional fees are so much more. It's like 10 times your normal fee. So I really hope they don't classify me as a professional. What else we got question-wise? If you guys got some, throw them down at the bottom, and I'm scrolling down through now trying to get to all these questions. Merlin, what do you think of the Euro USD daily? Well, let's find out. All right, here is your chart. Let's bring up EUR USD. This basically looks like a rock when you throw it into a pond, right? First wave is huge, second wave is big, third wave gets smaller. Pretty soon the pond goes back to flat. I think right now you're looking at, if you're looking at the Euro USD, you're just trading that range. And I would say that range-bound market, I mean, obviously it could create some great opportunity for you, but you're looking at a ceiling, just before that 110, I call it like 109.80, and your floor, I would put somewhere down here right around 107. So you're looking at a decent range. It's not massive, but you've got enough opportunity in here to make some money. Technically, though, it's just traversing sideways. I don't really like it. Let's go to the weekly to see if any different picture there. You're just going through a big period of consolidation is all it is. So I personally would just either trade that range-bound market or move on to something else that's got a better trend. I like more trending markets than I do this kind of chopping sideways stuff. Let's see. Sorry, as I read through here real quick, I'm going to more of the questions. You guys got a ton of good stuff today. Yes, thank you, Dr. Fauci, for the great short money today. That was just awesome. And keep it coming. Keep that sell-off going. Let's see, what else? What do I think of TLT? Okay, let's do that one for Rudy out there. Similar picture. I'm a trend guy. I like when things are really strong trends. This is not a good trend really at all. It's really just chopping sideways. Now, if we step back and look at where it was coming prior to that, you had some beautiful trends. Now it looks to me like it's just rolling over. So I'm, from a trading perspective, I'm not a fan. As an investor, maybe this is something for the long term, but I still think you're going to see some downside move here when this bond market starts to crumble, and I think it's crumbling a little bit already, but it might crumble even more. Let's see. Buy a car around Halloween. It's end of the month, end of the model year. There you go. Don't buy a car. Save your money, guys. Save your money because, here, do you really need a new car, or would you rather have $30,000 extra when shit hits the fan? You're going, now I want to load up on margin on this market at some new low. What would be more rewarding for you? Sitting in a nice leather car, leather seats, that got the interior new car smell that is just going to depreciate 20, 30% by the time you drive it off the lot. You get it for a few years and maybe you look cool in your new BMW, but who really cares? I'd rather have my bank account grow by 20, 30, 40, 50% just based off of making the right decision, having that free capital. So I always think about that when I look at buying a new car. I'm a practical guy, so I drive a Toyota pickup truck. I used to have a really nice kind of car in my garage. I sold everything except my motorcycle and my truck. Now I'll keep those things, and no need to go crazy. Keep it. Keep your money and be liquid and ready, because when markets crash, it's the ones who have capital that can really exploit a big move to the upside. Brendan says buy gold. Margin. Hey, I'm okay with margin, Nick. Not a problem with margin at all. What else we got? Natural gas is having a good sell-off, but the trend looks up. Good time to buy. I'm not a natural gas expert in any means. I want to get John Rowland on the program again. It was just so awesome when he was talking about crude oil last week. Oh, man, that guy really, really, really knows his stuff. Technically, you could look at this natural gas as a potential buy point. You're coming down into these relatively significant lows. The low we saw back on April 2nd. It dropped to a low of 164.8, so we'll call it 165. You're at 170, so you're a nickel off the lows. Historically, that's a pretty good point Let's go weekly. I mean, that's a historic low. It's a decent point to buy. Just remember, if you're buying this thing, what that means is you are going counter trend. You are going against the grain on this bad boy. You're basically trying to stop that avalanche as it's falling. And I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. It certainly seems like this would be a good point long term to be buying. I would love to have somebody again like John Rowland on to explain some of the mechanics and what he's seeing with regards to the fracking numbers, the natural gas storage numbers, the extraction numbers, the storage rates, those types of data points, which I don't pay too much attention to, are a factor in this. And I know what happens. A lot of us would look at this price chart and say, well, shit, this thing was at $5 back in 2018. It's at $1.70. Even if it gets to $3.40, I make 100% rate of return on that. Yeah, I would be careful with that. I don't think that is the logical way to go, although we're hearing about a crazy winter storm hitting the east. If that does, then that could all of a sudden drive the price of natural gas up. But yeah, I would probably go into maybe UNG and trade options on UNG or a natural gas ETF. What I see out there, there's one that says, no problem, Siraj. Puts but very, very cheap. After the split in USO, why can't you sell calls on them anymore? A lot of places are limiting what you can and cannot do with regards to anything related to oil because of the danger involved. The volatility has been too massive. Right now, you're probably going to see, my guess is like the next 2 weeks, you'll see people lock down what's going on with crude oil, meaning what can you do with crude oil. Futures will probably be limited. UCO, USO, or anything to do with oil will be limited just because they're fearful of what happened in April happening again. I mean, some of these brokerage firms, I think Interactive Brokers said they had an $80 million loss because of that. 80 million is a pretty hefty number. All right, let me go to your economic calendar for tomorrow and just show you some of the earnings type of stuff. That way we can roll through this and get this one. Here's what we got for tomorrow. Now, we are near the tail end of earnings. Not tail end, but it's starting to slow down with regards to earnings. But I wanted to bring this one up because there's two companies on here that I really am interested to see what happens tomorrow. First one, I'm really looking forward to this one. Ready? Do I get the drum roll? I should have sound effects. Actually, I'm working on sound effects for you guys. That's Royal Caribbean. The estimate is right now that Royal Caribbean is going to be doing negative 58 cents per share. Look, they are 100% grounded. There's nobody on a cruise ship right now. They haven't taken off in weeks. So they are in a world of hurt. What's the chart look on Royal Caribbean? It was appallingly bad, and I've had so many people tell me they're buying Royal Caribbean, which there's Carnival. Yeah, it's still not the best. Let's go RCL. I mean, it's definitely bounced off the lows, that's for sure, but it's $36. I wouldn't pay $36 for Royal Caribbean. Again, I think they're going to go bankrupt. We'll go to the daily just so you can see the longer-term picture. Yeah, not looking, I mean, it's a nice bounce, but still I think you get some downside pressure here, so I wouldn't touch Royal Caribbean. That's the main one coming out tomorrow that I'm excited about to see. The other one, which could potentially be a market mover, is this guy. Is the top one, which is Cisco. You see Cisco at the top. Remember, Cisco is one of those indexes that's a member of the NASDAQ, the S&P, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Okay, for tomorrow, we do have a couple of announcements. The main thing here for the U.S. is going to be this guy. Powell will be speaking, and you know damn well Powell is going to say something very positive. He's going to say, well, at the Fed, he's not going to say, he's much more articulate than I am. He will say, well, we at the Fed feel that we need to be proactive and take every step necessary to ensure the stability of the financial markets. We will do this through a variety of different operations. We see some great actions on the part of the Fed already to help backstop corporate debt and institutional debt. This is a step, but we need to be very proactive because we are nervous about the economy going forward. And he probably wouldn't even say nervous about the economy going forward because that would all of a sudden make the market tank. The question is, does he invoke enough confidence right now in the market to get it to pop tomorrow? Or is this little sell-off we see here a precursor of a bigger move? My gut feeling is you'll see the market pop to the upside a little bit when he speaks, and after that they're going to go, he didn't say shit. He said the same thing he's been saying for weeks, and then it'll start to sell off again. So that's the main thing for tomorrow. You also have this number here. You also have this number here, which is crude oil inventories coming out tomorrow. That is a biggie, and I'll show you why here in a second. It's kind of important. You're looking at 4.6 million barrels. It's interesting because this is one of the first times I've seen them not make a forecast for the week. They're always forecasting, but this week I don't see a forecast out there. here's what I wanted to show you. This is the chart of crude oil going back into 2018. What's noteworthy here is the far right-hand side of the chart in the red box. You can see that inventories have been dropping significantly, really, really quickly. So this may be a case for oil continuing to break up to the upside here out of that consolidation we've been seeing right around that $25 mark. So that is a noteworthy thing for tomorrow. Right now, expectations are we're going to come out much, much lower with regard to crude oil inventories. That's great and may prevent that next futures contract from imploding to negative $40 plus per contract. That's just nuts. Okay, that will do it for me today, guys. When Powell speaks, it's Powell and Powell. I don't know. I don't like listening to any of those guys speak because I feel it's so rehearsed. It's funny that when we were doing power trading radio at the beginning, they wanted to actually script it, and I said, first off, I talk a mile a minute, so you're gonna have a pretty big script writer. B, I'm not a big reader of teleprompter. I'm not good at that type of thing. Plus, I think you get more honesty and you really get a sense as to what's real when someone is not on a prompter. All our presidential speeches, all our Congress, it's all scripted, and I just don't like it. So yeah, Mnuchin, Powell, get rid of those guys. All right, that will do it for today's show, everybody. If you enjoyed today's discussion, do me a favor, click that thumbs up button, give me a like. If you are new to the program, which I think we might have many people who are new, click that subscribe button. I do the show live every day at 2 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys are always welcome to join, send in questions. You can put those comments and questions down below the YouTube video if you are watching this video right now, if you actually made it this far into our, what are we in, 46 minutes of the video. If you made it this far, congratulations. You should get like a t-shirt or something out there. Maybe one day I'll make t-shirts or hats or something for all the faithful out there once I actually make some money off this one. Actually, if that put position, which if I get to 400 or 500 put options on the S&P and it does do what I think it's going to do, I'll buy all of you t-shirts and hats. How about that? All right, yeah, click that thumbs up button. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Tomorrow, I don't really have anything scheduled with regards to guests. I might find a guest. I might just do another show solo. If you have a specific thing you want me to cover, type it into the chat or go down to, you can actually always go to TraderMerlin, TraderMerlin.com. I don't really have anything on that site, but you can go there and send me questions through that one. You can go to TraderMerlin@gmail.com as well to send them directly to me. That said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.